Now guys, this is very important that we've touched on this. Let's look at this word, fault. Okay, look at the word fault. Now, fault can take two forms, guys. Okay, can you remember what we said in the first lecture? The forms that fault can take. Number one, intention. And number two, you can give me the second leg of fault. You can remember? Well done. Negligence. So what is intention? Intention is where a person willingly and knowingly does something wrong. Okay? Like for argument's sake, where you willingly and knowingly does something wrong. I want to do something and I do it. And I know that it is wrong. Okay? I willingly and knowingly do it. That is what intention is. Secondly, negligence. Let's just write negligence down here. Okay. Negligence, what does that mean? The person's mistake was honest, it was an honest mistake, it was a genuine mistake, and they did not mean to defame. Okay? The reasonable person would have foreseen harm and would have taken reasonable steps to guard against such harm. In the case of defamation, though, guys, very important, you've got to remember this for the exam as well. In the case of defamation, fault here, which can be either intentional or negligence, must always be intentional. Okay? Always be in the form of intention. You cannot have negligent defamation. Doesn't exist. Okay? In our law. It's got to be intentional. So the plaintiff must therefore show, the plaintiff, who's the plaintiff? The plaintiff is the person that was defamed. Okay? So the plaintiff must therefore show that the defendant defamed him on purpose. Or what's the synonym for that? Intentional. Okay? And intention is just a form of fault. So remember in the exam, when they give you maybe a little case study, and the word negligence come in, okay, or an honest mistake or something like that come in, then you know it cannot be defamation, because defamation has to be intentional, always, in South Africa anyway. Okay, has everybody got that? Now, defamation has got to be intentional. On purpose. Okay. So, before compensation, we don't know what compensation is. That is the nice amount that the plaintiff is going to get, $1 million or 2 or 3 million rand. Before compensation, the plaintiff must prove the following, and this has always been the exam, guys, a couple of times on the tests. Look at this. I say double NB there. Doesn't mean New Balance. It means very important. Plaintiff must prove a causal connection between the publication of the defamatory words and what? You've got to know this by now. Remember, before the money pays out, the plaintiff must prove a causal connection between the publication, in other words, that what he read or heard, of the defamatory words or act, and what else, guys? What else? There's got to be a causal connection between the defamatory words and what? The lowering of the self-esteem, okay, or the respect in which the plaintiff is held in the community. If the plaintiff cannot prove this, there will not be any compensation. In other words, the plaintiff has to prove that what was said or written or broadcasted, okay, caused the lowering of his self-esteem, caused him to feel awful and terrible and depressed. Okay, so in other words, there's the link that I'm talking, the causal. Look how depressed and sad these guys look. I don't know if you can see it. Okay. So in other words, there's got to be a causal connection between what is said and read in the newspapers or on TV or television and the lowering of the self-esteem. And if the plaintiff cannot prove that, guys, there's not going to be any compensation. Okay. And of course, the defamatory words must refer to the defendant. If no, that's wrong. The defamatory words must refer to the plaintiff. I'll change that. The defamatory words must refer to the plaintiff. Okay. It has to refer to the plaintiff. It cannot refer to somebody else or anybody else. Okay. Groups. Let's look at groups. A lot of people together. Okay. Now, when the defendant merely refers to a group of people and the plaintiff is a member of such group, what is the situation there? Can any one of these guys, say for argument's sake the defendant talks about a group of people, can any one of these people in here claim for defamation? What do you guys think? The plaintiff must be able to prove that the defamatory words concerned him or her. Okay? If he cannot do that, one cannot say that he was defamed. So if a journalist referred to a group of people, and any one of these people in here feels defamed, they must prove in a court of law that defamatory words concerned him or her or him or her or whatever. And if he can't do that, he cannot claim compensation. What about deceased persons? You died. Sorry, you're dead. Okay? Now, can people talk bad about you? Yes, of course people can talk bad about you, but can you can't sue, but can your executor sue because people are talking bad about you? In South Africa, guys, no, you can't. In South Africa, a deceased person cannot be defamed. Okay, so it doesn't matter how famous you are. You can be the president of South Africa, you can be a very famous film star, you can be the CEO of a very big company. When you're dead, you're dead, and it doesn't matter if people talk bad about you, okay, your executor cannot sue for your bad name. But, very important, and there's always a but, okay, but if this defamatory words, okay, cast any other family member in a bad light, then that family member can institute a defamatory action. Okay, so the deceased or the executor of the deceased cannot, but if a family member feels that whatever was said is also defamatory towards him or her, then they can sue for defamation. Okay, this has also been an exam question for 2 or 3 marks. So I can envy there also, guys. I've seen that a couple of times. Right, juristic persons. Can any of you remember what a juristic person is? We've dealt with that a while ago. A juristic person. Can you remember? What is a juristic person? Okay. It is not a normal person, it's not a normal human being. It's like companies, churches, universities. Okay? They are legal, they've got the same rights as a human do. They can also go sign a contract. There's certain things that they can't do. Obviously, a juristic person like BMW or Alpha can't get married. Okay? There's certain things that a juristic person cannot do. But normal things you can do, like going into a contract of sale, etc., etc. Varsity College is a juristic person. Now, a juristic person, such as a company or a trade union or a university, has a separate legal personality, okay, that is independent of its members. In other words, what happens is, say for argument's sake, a church wants to sign a contract. Church doesn't have arms or legs or a brain to sign a contract. The members of the church will sign the contract on behalf of the church. Okay, so it's got a separate legal entity, and therefore it has its own status and reputation. South African law is uncertain in this respect. It's never happened in South African law that a company has sued somebody for defamation. So therefore, we don't know what will happen in the South African law if a company sues for defamation. It's never happened before, and therefore it's uncertain in the South African law. There's no case law to refer to. There's no precedents to refer to. Okay. So let's look at the government. Before 1975, the government could not be defamed. Okay. Government could not be defamed before 1975. You could say anything about the government, whatever you wanted to, and the government could not take you to court for defamation. But why? Sorry. Why did the court say that? The court said that it is unreasonable to use taxpayers' money to institute actions for defamation against taxpayers when a free country had criticised the government's actions. So they say it's a waste of money. Complete waste of money. But then, again, after but, in 1975, the Minister of Justice, Mr. Pelser, instituted a claim against the Sunday Times for defamation that that the cabinet was criticised and that he, as a member of the cabinet, had been criticised. He felt criticised because there was a certain article that was in the Sunday Times, and what did he do? He sued the Sunday Times. Okay? He sued the Sunday Times, and what did the court say? The court said, yes, he's right. So from 1975 onwards, you can be sued in person if you defame the government in an article or in a newspaper, magazine, or anything to that effect. So this is significantly limited the criticism that a person on the street can level against the government. Okay, sounds a little bit unfair, doesn't it? Sounds a little bit unfair. All right, let's go on, guys. Damages or prejudice. Now this is the most interesting, and this is interesting part of it, and this is what the plaintiff obviously wants. What does the plaintiff want? The court must decide on the amount of money for compensation to the plaintiff. That is why you're suing, because you want money in your pocket. Okay? You feel very bad, you feel depressed about what was said about you, and you want to feel, how are you going to feel better? By suing for money, and lots of it. Okay, so the court obviously needs to take certain stuff into consideration to determine or to decide what the amount of compensation is going to be. Okay, so the court must decide, is it going to be 100,000 Rand, is it going to be 200,000 Rand? What, can any of you think of what factors the court will think of or look at when they decide what amount is going to be decided on for the plaintiff? Amount of compensation is going to be decided on. Anybody?
The position.
Yes, that's right. Person's position in society. In other words, if it's me or you who are not very important people, we might get less money than a very important person, like a CEO of a company or a film star, somebody like that. Okay, so they're going to look at the position of the person in the society. They're going to look, or the court is going to look at the group of people in which one can find such a person. They're also going to look at the persons to whom the defamatory statement was published, who it was published to. Was it only in a certain area of the country? Was it for the whole country? Was it the whole world? In other words, how many people saw that specific defamatory statement? How serious was the statement really? Was it really, really earth-shattering serious? You know, and this is where they take the reasonable man test again. Okay, will the reasonable man feel that this was a very serious statement that was made against him? Okay, and then what else does the court look at? Is the plaintiff's career dependent on his or her reputation? Very important. Say for argument's sake, you defame somebody in such a bad way that that person gets fired from his job. Okay, the court will look at that in a very, very serious light, because now suddenly the claim is a lot bigger. This guy earns, say, 50,000 Rand a month. He's not working there anymore. He would have worked with that company for the next 10 years. 50,000 times 12, 600,000 a year, times 10, that's already a 6 million Rand claim. See what I'm saying? So that is very important, guys, and this is also very important for the test of the exam. Okay? What is the court going to look at when they decide on the amount of money for compensation for the plaintiff? So it's a good 5